Rejoining us, Rick Ungar, senior political contributor for Forbes.com, also co-host of Steele and Ungar on Sirius XM. He joins us from Newsmax, New York. And also joining us today, Frank Miniter, the author of the new book, The Future of the Gun. Gentlemen, thanks very much for being here. Frank, when it comes to gun rights in Maryland, do you agree with the judge's decision and Maryland law to restrict certain types of weapons and large magazines and capacity?
Right, that's a massive gun ban that was passed and opposed by many of the sheriffs in that state and a lot of the citizens who stood up against it and argued, wait, there's real ways we can stop gun violence. Let us come to the table and help. You know, rifles are actually used in less than 3% of murders, and almost never are AR-15s, what they call assault weapons from that side, used in any kind of murder.
So you get the take there from Frank. Rick, what about that decision and what about the Maryland law? Frank says it is bad news.
Well, look, I mean, let's approach it from a legal perspective. For starters, keep in mind this was a federal district court. This has a long, long way to go. In reading what the court had to say and knowing the room, narrow as it may be, that's been allowed in terms of exceptions to the Second Amendment by the Supreme Court, the judge is probably right. It gets tough to call, but you know who's going to make this decision ultimately will be the Supreme Court, and we'll just have to wait and see. You never really know where they're going to go when it comes to these kinds of narrow exceptions.
Well, wait a second. I mean, semi-automatic firearms have been available here since the late 19th century. I mean, that's what they're dealing with. It's a very old technology, and to call that as anti, I mean, to regulate that and say that's banned and that shouldn't be in the hands of the average person is really very silly. In fact, while doing this book, The Future of the Gun, I spent time with a sheriff in Maryland, in southern Maryland, who started the first drug interdiction unit in Maryland to catch the bad guys. And I asked him, did you ever catch a good guy with a gun who'd done some crime with that gun? And he said, never, and I don't know any cop who has.
And as you set that up, you made mention, Frank.
It's a legal issue, yeah.
Well, it is a legal issue. It is a public policy
Frank's
issue.
kind of talking about it, but when Frank talks about it from the point of view that that gun's been here for X number of years, I'm sure it has. Frank knows what he's talking about in this area. But that doesn't mean, and the court has said this clearly, that there cannot be situations and exceptions where you can legislate narrowing what is permissible under the Second Amendment. I'm not saying that he'll turn out to be wrong. He may, in fact, turn out to be right. What I'm saying is you're only looking at a district court judge. If you look at how she interpreted the law and whether the law is constitutional, she came down on yes. I understand why she came down on yes. There's a long way to go here, and we'll see.
Well, the Supreme Court decided in the Heller decision.
Yeah, the Heller decision left a lot of
room. They decided that guns in common use, that are in common use, used by the average person, and the AR-15 has been available to citizenry since 1962, since it was first available from Colt. So that gun has always been in common use. The Supreme Court has made that decision. So as long as that court doesn't change, I see them throwing out this decision from this Maryland court.
My interpretation of Heller is slightly different as it goes to this, and I don't think there's much chance the court has changed, so we'll see. If Frank turns out to be right, then they will strike this down.
Well, there are some changes that have come to firearms technology. Frank, in your new book, you write of such innovations and advancements in firearms that you say can minimize accidental deaths, save lives in mass shootings, and perhaps prevent criminals from carrying out attacks. You also say that anti-gun lobbies hinder that innovation. We've got a couple of minutes left. Tell us quickly what changes you see there and heat not only from the anti-gun groups, but possibly even from Attorney General Holder and the Justice Department?
Right, you're talking about smart gun technology, which is very controversial because the anti-gun movement wants it mandated, make mandatory, which means all the guns now available would be illegal for sale. And there's actually a law in New Jersey, it's been on the books since 2002, that one of these guns is available on the market. If the Attorney General decides it's available, then that gun can be the only gun sold, only smart gun technology. Now, smart gun technology, of course, uses some kind of system that stops the gun from not being used by an unauthorized person. Some use a bracelet. Armatex has one out of Germany that does that. You have to put on this bracelet and have this battery-powered gun to do that. Another one out of Utah has the IntelliGun that uses a biometric scanner actually on the gun's grip. And that's more interesting because you don't have to put on some bracelet and this kind of thing. But again, gun owners are opposed to this, or at least have trouble with it because they don't want to take a device, a mechanical instrument that's designed to save their life, and put a battery in it, put the uncertainty of a battery into that thing. So they're saying, look, the NRA, the National Shooting Sports Foundation say it's fine, let's have this technology, it's very good, we're not opposed to it, we're opposed to it being mandated.
A difference between individual rights, personalization, and a kind of collective blanket not giving people the choice. Certainly, Rick Ungar, you understand the differentiation that Frank has offered right here.
I do, actually. And actually, I would have gone, I agree with everything Frank just said, and I would have gone a step further. There's another problem. I happen to love the idea of the smart guns. The other problem, though, is that when we mandate people to have smart guns, what are they going to do with their current guns? And the fear is that they'll find their way on the illegal market, which could, in fact, create more trouble. Although I think that can be manageable if we do it smartly. Frank's point about whether you have to put a battery in or this or that, fair enough. My suggestion would be that the NRA primarily get behind further development of the smart gun, become a supporter of it, help people get behind it so that smart guns can be created in a way. I'm not saying the technology is all there. Create them in a way that solves some of the problems that Frank correctly raises. But let's get behind it.
We will have to leave it there, gentlemen. Frank Miniter, to you and your new book, The Future of the Gun. We thank you so much for your time. And as always, to Rick Ungar, who's hung in for a couple of different topics today from Newsmax New York. Thanks to you too, Rick.
Always a pleasure.
It is a pleasure, and we'll continue the debate, continue the discussion on a variety of topics next here on America's Forum.